Overkill would be a hog 3 for 4 par cans or 4 moving heads. And again, I have seen a hog 3 for 4 par cans. And the first thing I wanted to do, of course, is go home with the hog 3 because they don't deserve a hog 3 if all they have is 4 par cans. But you can't do that because stealing is a crime. So, but again, I was a little bit overkill. I'm like, there's no way. I would never do that sort of thing. And again, over the top can be a good thing. It means an elaborate setup. It means more than what your client expected for the money that they got, but because you're cutting out things like not needing a lighting technician because you're using remote control, you're giving them a bigger light show, and you're still making more profit in the end because my lighting technicians want to get paid. I'm like, what? What is this? I don't even... And overkill is using the wrong equipment and or too much of it. Next is business plan. I don't know if everybody here has a business plan. I'm not going to make you out yourself, but if you have a business plan, give yourselves a round of applause because it's the greatest thing ever to have, right? So first of all, you got to ask yourself on your business plan, if you're going to do lighting, you got to have an entire section just for lighting. Lighting is getting to be a headache to keep track of, at least for us, because there's so much of it. So we rewrote our entire business plan to be on lighting. So first of all, you got to ask yourself, are you going to offer architectural lighting? Are you going to, for example, uplighting, gobos, textures, even lasers? For example, even if you have lasers and you use the laser to do a graphic of the bride and groom, that can be considered architectural lighting. Party lighting, your moving heads, your floods, your strobes, your beams, you know, anything like that. And of course, you can do special lighting, such as your black lights, RGB lasers for actual washes and all that. Or you can do all of them, of course. But you can't say, well, Arnoldo, I'm going to do party lighting only because I don't want to do architectural lighting, and that's fine. But don't say, well, I'm going to do party lighting, not architectural lighting, but I am going to offer uplighting and gobos. Okay, well, hold on. If you're going to offer uplighting and gobos, you're doing some sort of lighting for the actual, to enhance the venue, not just the party. So at that point, start writing your business plan. What light are you going to go with? Now, you can go with this light, which is, it's cheap, it's affordable, but you know it's not going to last you that long. Or you can go ahead and spend a couple $100s more and get a nice light that you like. Or maybe you're debating on power. Maybe your venues don't have a lot of power. Again, I'm in Florida. We can run an Aerosmith concert off the average high school bathroom because there's just power laying everywhere, right? And don't ask how I know. But in all seriousness, you need to find out, is it going to be enough power in there? And if it is, maybe having a source 4 or having a 575 watt gobo projector is not going to work. In that case, then your business plan would say, well, I'm going to need an LED gobo projector. Okay, well, you know that. Now, what kind of LED gobo projector are you going to get? And just don't go by online reviews. See if you can see it in person. See if you can find somebody that's used it before, because sometimes photos can be misleading. That's why shows like NAMM are great, because the vendors are out there seeing these lights live, and they can give you the best example out there. Or again, you can offer a combination. This is my favorite, and this is the photo that I used to sell lighting. You'll notice that we did, totems. We did uplighting. By the way, those uplights, those are years old, and we still use them. We did the white trussing because white trussing is just elegant and cool, and now I want the red trussing. So, I got to find a way to fit that into business plan. But, we have the dance floor lighting. We have the gobos on the sides. There was a balcony, right? In the balcony, we had black lights to enhance the white and the tables. Has anybody noticed that that's a high school gym? Yeah, if you notice up in the corner, there is a basketball hoop. And when I show that to a bride, they're like, no, it isn't. Ma'am, there's a basketball hoop right there. They're like, oh my God, that's so pretty. That right there automatically shows them what awesome lighting design can do for their wedding. And you can bet that most of the brides that I have are not having their wedding in a high school gym or a church gym or anything like that. So let's say they're having it at the Ritz or the Wyndham or, wherever. My favorite, tent weddings. I tell them, like, look, if I can do this in a high school gym, imagine what I can do in your $20,000 venue, right? My favorite are tent weddings. Does anybody here like doing tent weddings as much as I do, except in August in Florida? Tent weddings are the easiest one to make money off of because tents are hideous. I'm sorry, I don't care how much you decorate a tent, it's still a tent. But with some lighting, imagine if we project those type of patterns on the top of the tent. I mean, anything like that, you can do some crazy cool stuff with tents. And now you take a wedding that maybe only wanted to spend $1,500, and they're spending $7,000 on lighting just because they're in a tent, and now they got to make it look pretty. No, these are actually some of the older 250s that we had. These lights we've had since 2005. And the bulb, well, what's going on here? Awkward. There we go. But again, they still work for us. We haven't even had to change the bulbs yet. Now, when the bulbs do go out, we may not buy new bulbs for them because the bulbs cost more than the moving head does because they're HTI bulbs. But they still work for us. They were really good lights. I love them. That was actually one of our vendors that we do a lot of work with. I don't like to usually subcontract stuff, so I just got the bride in touch with her directly. But we work one-on-one to make sure that, the drapery picked up the gobo in the right pattern, but it still let the pattern go all the way through to the wall. So buying floods breaks return of interest. I pick on floods so much because, again, floods are getting to the point that once you have a great set, stick with it for the rest of your life until they break or until you actually need more. Again, if you're a multi-op, you're always going to need more because people that work for you usually suck at keeping track of equipment, and then they're like, oh, look, the light bounced down the ceiling. It fell in the toilet. I am so sorry. Why was the light in the toilet to begin with? Again, true story, but whatever. So again, buying flood breaks return of interest, right? LED technology, as I said, has progressed so far that you can invest in light, or you don't have to invest in lighting without having to spend hundreds of dollars, but you can, or every year, but you can invest in it without having to recuperate costs, meaning I'm going broke because I bought this light. I love the fact that I can pick up a light for a couple $100s if I need some extra floods, and I don't have to think about whether that light's going to be bright enough because I already have lights just like it. Also, if you stick with the same brand, like one of the reasons, again, that, like Brian said, American DJs saw that I use a lot of, they saw my YouTube videos and stuff. The reason I always stick with the same type of light is because DMX channels, I hate reprogramming lights. You buy a new light, it's got a different set of DMX channels. Well, that stinks. So I like going with the same type of light so I don't have to keep buying or keep reprogramming lights and everything else. And you don't need to have the brightest lights to create the look that you need. Again, these floods, the Moving Heads 2005, the floods are about just as old and they work just fine. The reason I pick so much in the flood is because it is the foundation of your lighting. And you got to ask yourself, do you want to choose strips? Do you want to choose pars? The advantage of strips is you usually get a real wide beam out of the strips, right? And the pars, you can get a nice focus beam. You can use them for uplighting. But I like to use LSF filters, which we're going to cover that in a bit in just a second. Pars, again, with just your standard round par, they are portable. They're a lot easier to carry than a strip because after a while, the strips kind of get in the way. I can just shove a whole bunch of pars in a box. Again, I'm Hispanic, so I can fit like 100 of them in this podium here. And it's only funny because it's true, folks. But again, it's one of those you got to ask yourself, what do you want to use? We use a combination of both. I like, for example, I have strips like my Mega 24s that I use to hit the far walls because they throw way out there, and I focus on the pars just to hit the primary dance floor for a school dance. And you also want to make sure you avoid creating a hot spot. And I keep talking about that a lot because when I ask photographers, and that's the thing, I ask DJs, what do you want to see in a lighting seminar? I ask photographers, what do you want to see in a lighting seminar? Because photographers are going to refer me a lot more than DJs are going to refer me. Something about competition, and this guy's mean on the forums. But no, in all seriousness, I want photographers to refer me. I want photographers to refer you guys because they can make your life just as easy as we can make their life. So I asked them, what do you see DJs do? And the one thing they did say is, I hate having to change the way that I do lighting because a DJ didn't know how to set up their light. LSF filters. This is my favorite. It's the greatest thing. It's really only called LSF. But because, we're taboo, we're going to say light shaping filters. This basically creates your flexibility in pars, and you can shape the beam from like almost nothing to 60 degrees. So I have, like, for example, I like my QWH5s because they have a gel holder on them. So I put the gel in there, and I have 4 of them. And I want to see how far I could push with 4. So I had my wife, Monica. Monica, stand up for me. Stand up, fine, whatever. She doesn't want to stand up. Girl in the purple right there, she loves 2 chains. So if you see her, you got to go 2 chains. She is my lighting designer. She is the one that does, whenever I'm not able to do anything, she is my second, right hand, or first right hand, but my second man in charge, second woman in charge. So I told her, I want to try these lights out, but I want to make sure that they're going to be bright enough to fit 800, like 600 to 800 students in there, right? So we set up other lights as backup, but we had those off. You guys want to see what 4 par cans looks with 800 students? None of the hotel lights were on, and we just had 2 floodlights in the back for the photo, or uplights in the back for the photo booth. So that was 600 to 800 students with 4 par cans. It was beautiful. Because now, instead of having to set up 12 to 14 par cans like we used to before, we upgraded to these. We didn't sell the other ones. We didn't throw them away. We basically put them in as backups. We put them in as, uplighting for the venues that didn't pay for the LED, the really nice LED uplighting, but don't have enough power. So we're able to now basically cut our time by almost half by only setting up 4 of them. And these power link too, so that's less stuff that we have to run. So again, it allowed me to use 4 power cans to flood a room or a prom of 800 students. It was like 775, 800, whatever, who's counting. Now some of these pars have the gel holders, A lot of them don't have them. I just bought some par cans I absolutely love, but they don't have gel holders. In that case, you can use tape, but tape after a while kind of gets worn out. Ticky-tack, is anybody here a teacher by any chance? Or know what ticky-tack is? Okay, ticky-tack is the greatest thing ever. It's the stuff the teachers use to put that stop and think poster on the walls. It's like, okay, if I play this prank, how much trouble am I going to get in? See, I stopped and think. But in all seriousness, or Velcro. My friend James Wanamaker's like, well, what about those little Velcro dots? So now we have a light that we can use, for example, as a wall wash because of the filter. If we turn it a little bit, it has a tighter beam, or I can take the beam out entirely and have a nice thick beam coming straight up out of there. Here's one of my favorites. With 2 LSFs, I took 2 par 64s. It was up in the balcony area, and I filled the entire hotel room area where people were dancing. Let me tell you, it is great when you can set up a light show in 30 seconds. Like, all right, got them here, got them there on a stand, set to go. How did it look? That's 2 par cans, folks. Yeah, well, you know. First of all, I like how half of you guys were trying to resist the urge to fist pump. They're like, but seriousness, 2 par cans for an entire wedding. It was the greatest thing ever. The people of the hotel, and Bobby D's, are you here? Rosen Hotel, you know how tricky they are when it comes to setup. Yes, hi, I understand you're going to be setting up 100 feet of trussing, and you have 4 video screens, and you have a celebrity performance. You have an hour to set up. Thanks. So, because they're a wedding machine. They don't give us a lot of time to set up. And they told me, look, this is a New Year's Eve wedding. We have a setup beforehand. You got like literally 10 minutes to get everything set up after, you know, other than the stuff downstairs. Upstairs, you got 10 minutes. So we put the LSF filters, we hooked them up, and bam, we had a nice, easy light show. And then we had some extra time, so I took, you know, one of the like event bars were the ones with the little individual moving heads on them, and I set it up, and I had some extra lighting, all wirelessly controlled. Yes, I could have done DMX, but it's much easier for a wedding where they didn't pay that much to just go click and have the lights ready to go. I have the colors all pre-programmed, not on my iPhone, but on the actual remote that came with the lights. So again, substitutions, and this is where, you know, if you talk to a pro person, they'll be like, sacre bleu. You want to make sure that, again, if you're a mobile DJ and you're trying to do different productions, and if you're a multi-op, that you're using the right tool for the right job, and sometimes you got to substitute to get it to do that. So first of all, when you're creating a show, ask yourself, one, are gobos going to matter at the show? You guys saw the photo that Bob Carpenter did. Jason Janai's not here, but you know Jason Janai can do some killer stuff with gobos. Wait, is he out there? Jason! All right, my favorite DJ named Jason Janai. But he does some incredible stuff with his gobos. So again, ask yourself, are gobos going to matter at this show? If they matter, you're most likely going to be needing to use DMX if it's a moving head, right? Is DMX going to matter at this show? Does the bride really care about where the lighting's perfectly timed to the music, or does she just want a fun, festive time? Where does DMX really apply for that? And did this client pay enough for me to set up a big show? Look, if a client didn't pay enough for the big show, I'm not going to sit there and set up a bigger show. You sell the right tool at the right time. So how do you get the big impact without big tools? Well, yes, first of all, you can do that in case anybody says, is it possible? But you got to look at each one by case basis. So kind of we're going to discuss a little bit and show you different things. First, multi-mirror fixture versus scanners. I love scanning lights. I usually use a lot more scanners than I use movers because when you're having the lights over the DJ, if I have a moving head and it's not programmed right, it'll hit me here, it'll hit there, and there. I don't care about all that. I just care about what's directly in front of me. So because of that, we use scanners a lot of times. Or we program the lights very carefully. But sometimes you have a school or a wedding that they didn't pay enough to bring scanners out, but you still want to bring a nice show. So you bring a multi-mirror fixture, maybe a barrel scanner. I like the Nucleus, I'm not going to lie, those things are awesome. You get tons of beams, right? I got like 6 beams out of them, but only one fixture. I'm going to show you a quick video clip. This was the very last song. We turned off all the floodlights. Okay, so that show, right? That was only 4 lights. And that was all on a remote control. We had no DMX for that. It was like awesome, you know, and now I can give my schools a much bigger show. I can tell them, okay, look, because you guys don't have enough money to bring out the scanners, we can bring out these couple little blinky lights, or I can say, hey, look, we've invested in these lights. They're about, you know, this, a little bit of smaller of an upgrade, not too much bigger to get the scanners, but you're going to get the nice big beams. Yes, these may not have gobos on them, but my clients aren't going to go, ooh, that's a star, moons, Lucky Charms. They just want nice thick beams. Another example, and sometimes we use them in the bigger shows too. When I have a big show and I just don't feel it's got the shebang that I need out of it, we set them up. Like, this is one of my favorite schools, right? You got a big 20-foot video screen, scary Beyonce. I think that's Beyonce or Lady Gaga. I have no idea, right? And then we had trussing set up in the back, and we wanted something extra besides just black lights, because that trussing was used for the black lights. So we set up these lights, and we had tons of beams flying everywhere, and it fit perfectly with the rest of the show. Again, movers versus scanners. DMX is going to be a huge deciding factor here. If the lighting is directly over you and you're trying to hit the floor and you're letting them go on standalone, or you don't have it properly programmed with DMX, they're only going to hit the floor that you actually want a certain amount of times. So if you're going to do that and there's nothing wrong with it, consider using a scanner. Again, the right tool for the right job. With some moving heads and some scanners, sometimes you can pick up 4 scanners for the price of 2 moving heads. So let's say you have 4 moving heads or 8 scanners. If you're doing schools, is a client going to notice what fixture you used or how many beams are flying around? I had a school that I've been wanting to get for a long time, and we finally got them. They told us how bad the DJ was. They didn't like the light show enough, and they didn't have any floods whatsoever. So we set up an actual nice DMX control light show with the floods. Not as many moving lights, but tons of floods, nice thick beams moving around. At the end of the show, the students loved it. A sponsor came up and said, you know, the students loved it, but I noticed you had less lights. I'm like, well, yes, but it was a bigger show. Yeah, but there were tons of beams everywhere, and the DJ had them on his table. Okay, I didn't want to say anything. First of all, the fact they were on the table is a whole different story, but what did we learn from that? And I took that and I discussed it with the rest of the DJs. I'm like, this client didn't care that the light show was better. She didn't care that it was DMX control. She just noticed, well, he had a lot more beams. So after that, when we started designing shows, we wanted lights that put out thicker beams, that put out more beams per light, so when you're running haze, you can really see what's going on. How are you positioning your lights? Again, if you do every single show where the trussing is over you, that might be easier. But I know a lot of DJs are now starting to get, especially if you do school dances, where you do the lighting over the dance floor, or you have it on different corners. In that case, you can have a lot more fun positioning your lights. And if you have the proper DMX program, and half of you guys know what I use, I love the fact that I can limit. So if I have what's called limiting pan and tilt. So if I have a show that the lights are all here, right? I don't want my pan and tilt to hit these areas here. But then when I move them to the other side of the floor, over the dance floor, I can say, nope, no pan and tilt, reset. That's where DMX becomes really powerful. And again, that of course controls where the light hits. Next is, do you use like a Source 4 LECO, or do you use an alternative? Now we have both. But I had a school that wanted to do, they did like an end of the world theme, right? The one that I showed you with the big giant video screen, it was called A Night in the End of the World. And they're doing zombies and all that fun stuff. It's the greatest theme ever. And I also broke their genie lift, but you know. But they wanted something outside. Her husband is a firefighter, so he had access to all this cool equipment to make it look like the world was ending, right? In all reality, it's Florida. The world's ending over there anyways. So she said, I'd like a couple of lights, maybe something to make it look nice and pretty out there, but we had no extra room for additional lights because all the circuits were being taken. We had enough for like an LED. So I went with an LED light, and they wanted to make it look like there was, you know, some sort of radioactive energy going behind. Yes, I could have used a Source 4, but here's a 50-watt LED, and notice how bright that is, even with all the other lights on, because this was right outside of the school, so all the overhead lights were on. And again, yes, I could have used a Source 4, but it's going to be out there by itself. What if a student touches it? What if a student says, I want to touch that real quick? Oh, it burns. I'm going to sue the DJ. Because, you know, they like suing all of us. Because DJs are millionaires. Did you guys know that? No? Okay, well, guess I didn't get the memo. But no, in all seriousness, it's one of those that you want to make sure you're bringing out not just the right tool, but also the safe tool. I know that I could leave that alone. I could let it run for hours, and I don't have to worry about setting the school on fire. You guys want to get school dances? Write this down. Don't set the school on fire. You think I'm kidding? No. Next is black lights. Calm yourself, it's coming up. I actually moved that way down because I love black lights. Black lights are the coolest thing ever, and I'm so glad Jason's here because I'm also going to talk about Jason's really cool black light wedding thing too. But first of all, before we talk about black lights, DMX or not, again, I keep saying you don't always have to have DMX because lights are now getting to the point where they do some cool stuff with a standalone. If you've seen my shows, I'm going to talk about the UFO here. I love this UFO, okay? Sometimes my wife reconsiders the marriage when I talk about how much I love the UFO, but it's okay. She loves it too. So it's a partnership. What's cool about it is I haven't done any programs for it. The program I have is on and off because the standalone in this thing is so cool that I don't need to worry about DMX programming it. So again, when does DMX control actually make, or not, or when does absolute DMX control make sense? If you're doing a simple wedding show of just, you know, floods or just a few moving lights, Do you need DMX? Or can you save more money and give your client a better value with doing a standalone show, or doing one that's done with a foot controller, or the infrared remote, or the UC3? And again, UC3 isn't infrared where it's wireless. You can keep it in your pocket. Because again, I can give a client a better show by not having to bring a light tech, and I can put that money that she invested into bringing out more lights. And of course, you can use a DMX controller, hardware or software. Who here uses a hardware controller with no software? Okay, good, nobody. I like the hardware feel, but I still like software because it's easier. So we bought the whole kit, Minicon, which actually lets me control everything with a hardware controller. So it gives me best of both worlds, but that's not always the best thing. So sometimes we bring out a UC3 controller, etc. So DJ guys that do weddings and not schools, what are some simple but killer wedding rigs in seconds? Now these are the ones based on the number of likes the DJs like, based on what the photographer likes, or the client likes that I brought out some of these shows. First of all, super simple show, right? You have two really bright park hands on top of your speaker. Now, because this room had all black ceilings, as you can see at the top, I couldn't bounce it off. So I have the speakers a little bit higher, and then I just bounced them down. I diffused them with an LSF. And you'll notice, even with the lights on the bottom photo, you can see the colors and everything splashing on people. It takes about 10 seconds to set it up. Super easy show, easy to set up, easy to break down. The great thing is, and if you do this, please make sure you consult the owner's manual, just my idiot alert out there. These lights do not have fuse on the actual power light. So the way I did is I hooked, ran an IC to the light, and then I used the power linking cable IC to IC to connect it to the speaker. That bypasses the fuse on that part. So I know the speaker's not going to blow the fuse with the light or anything. Super easy show. This is my favorite that I've done recently. They wanted to do a Winter Wonderland theme, so we had tons of uplights done in a nice rich blue. And again, because there were no outlets on an ear wall, because ear walls are evil, and every DJ that does lighting hates ear walls. Please tell me, do you agree with that? We needed something that has power linking, so we did that. And then of course we had a simple light which is all white in the background. They just wanted to be white and blue. So we set this all up, right? You know the problem with white and blue and just doing something that involves nothing but white lighting is these yellow lights really ruin your show. They ruin the photographer's photos because now everything's going to be yellow. And if you turn down to yellow, then everybody's skin looks kind of weird. It gets all sorts of craziness. So my wife Monica's like, hey, we still have those freaks in the back. Boy, that sounded weird. We had those LED white flood strobe lights in the back, and we put them on top of the bows, right? And we did the power linking too. And we had them in there, we aimed them at the top of the ceiling. So as they walked in, there was none of the hotel lights were on. The room was a true, perfectly true white and blue. I got to hurry, we got like 4 minutes, goodness. So just to show you an example here, right? You can see the whole room that's completely white as they walk in. Now notice something. You see how yellow those lights are? That's what the room would have looked like. So by not having those hotel lights on and using our white strobes and having them solid on and being able to bounce them off the entire ceiling, we had a nice even flood of white lighting. So kudos to Monica on that one. The client loved it, and the photographer was like, my God, that's amazing. The great thing is we didn't use DMX for that show at all. Everything that we did was controlled with our UC3 controller. The next one that I love, again, this is one of my favorites. I have the really bright white light again. I have 2 park hands, and I have like the all-in-one skins, right? Like the quad skins you see there. But what's cool about having that white light is, again, when they want to do the bouquet guard or they want to do something special, instead of rushing over, turning on the house lights, rushing back, I just hit the remote control and I turn on my bright white light. And then the videographer loved it. He's like, oh my God, turn it on for a second. And he got some really cool silhouette shots. If you go to my seminar, you'll notice that I always, or not seminar, my exhibit hall or booth or whatever, you'll notice that I actually use those lights quite a bit as off-camera flashes. Then again, I also use them to repair my car because if you ever burned yourself on a 500-watt halogen light, it hurts. So the point is, good coverage, efficient control, bang for the buck, and consistent look for your brand. Now let's talk about black lights. And I'm going to talk a little bit faster because I know I've been talking a little bit slow. First of all, you have three primary types of black lights. We have our fluorescent. They are cheap, they're efficient, they are Las Vegas, baby. They are wide coverage, but they are bulky. And let me tell you, when you drop a fluorescent black light tube on your friend's back, they do not want to be your friend afterwards. Metal halide is powerful, but it's costly, it needs power, it's fragile, even though it lasts long. And LED has the best return of investment. It sips power, it does emit visible light, which we'll go over in a second, but you can DMX and strobe it. You guys think strobe lights are cool? Imagine if you do strobe lights with black lights. That's my favorite part. So again, LEDs and the whole black light deal, right? Your average UV wavelength It's about 365 to 368, as you can see right there. Did not get that off Wikipedia. So actually I talked to my friend Bill Cronham about this. LEDs are a little bit higher than that. The visible light will be seen. Oh no, so it won't be a true black light. But does the client actually care? Let me ask you this. Does the average school that wants black lights, do they say, okay, I want you to turn off all the lights in the hotel room with a bunch of teenagers? They're not going to say that. So I tell them, okay, look, we have the LED black lights, but unlike traditional black lights, they still emit a little bit of visible heat or light, so you can actually see the students, and it's not going to be pitch black. They love it. Plus, for the most part, when we do our black light shows, we also have other LED floods and stuff on at the same time. But the LED black lights have packed such a powerful punch that they don't get outwashed by the other lights. So you get the best of both worlds. And this is from somebody that used fluorescent lights, homemade from Lowe's for years. But again, it's one of those, use the right tool for the right job. Again, to give you an example, you'll see that really nice and bright. And that's just with the black lights on, right? But what happens if we mix the LED black lights with color changing lights? So even if they have a strobe swing, even if they have LED color changing lights, the black lights don't get overwashed by that. So black lights can be used for easy schools upsell. I'm going to tell you right now that I just had another school call and say, hey, we'd like to upgrade. We want to do black lights, we want to do glow-in-the-dark bubbles. Please send us a $500 invoice. $500 for black lights and glow-in-the-dark bubbles. That's what their last prom DJ charged for the entire thing. Black lights are easy sells. And they're easier to do now than ever. Glow bubble parties. How many here do bubble parties? They're just the coolest things ever. I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever feel depressed, hang out with little kids. Because little kids just make you feel like a rock star. So for example, right, we have like the cannons they sell at Spencer's. And those cannons, they're UV reactive, right? So we have like the games and stuff with the cannons where you got to knock the cup off the tables. Everything was black, but we had the blue light still on, but it still had a black light effect. This was a 1-hour bubble party, and they paid $500 for it. Well, excuse me, $4.95, right? That's what your average DJ in our area is charging for an entire school prom in 1 hour. It's beautiful during a week. So again, specialized glow rings. We get schools, one of my favorite college clients, because they're my favorite because they're like 5 seconds away from my house. They say, we want to do a rave in the library. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to do it black lights, black lights, black lights, black lights. The phone call didn't go quite like that, but close enough. Special wedding dances, and this is where I want to point to Jason again, because he did an awesome video where he had the black lights on, he passed out the white gloves, and it was just the coolest video ever. And I haven't seen something like that done before. But then we've also used it, especially with DMX Control, we use it to make certain decorations on the walls or whatever they had pop. They had the white linens with along with the regular LED lights, we use the black lights to make things pop. And then, of course, rentals, because not everyone has black lights, so now you can start renting stuff to other DJs. Black lights are cheap nowadays, especially the LED black lights. So, to close it up, because you guys are like, I'm ready to go, LED strobes, we are finally here. It used to be that LED strobes were they weren't that bright at all, they weren't that fast. They're incredibly fast now. I love the LED strobes. Make sure you check into them because strobes used to suck up a lot of power. If anybody here has ever used one of the big strobes, you know what I'm talking about. You can also use LED strobes as a bat signal at school dances. How many here have the administrator come up to you and say, make sure you play music safely or I'm going to stop you every 5 seconds. And then they do the administration dance where they're going like this, stop the music. And they have to jump because the average high schooler is like 8'5" nowadays, right? I'm telling you, it's crazy. I'm like 5'5" and 5'6", depending on which convenience store I'm leaving. But anyway, so what I do is, I want to make sure that I address those concerns before they ever come up to me. So I get all the teachers together, and I sit them down, and I show them the lights, and they're like, ooh, wow, oh my God, glow-in-the-dark bubbles, you're the best DJ ever. And then I tell them, okay, now look, if something happens, if there's something on the dance floor that I see that I don't want to bring attention to, and I've only had to do this once or twice, right? You're going to see all these strobe lights in a solid white on with a couple of these blinking at a certain pattern. At that point, Monica's like, solid on. It's called SLS mode, right? And the other lights are blinking. That means that I need you up here, but I don't want to bring attention to it. That tells the administration, yo, I got this. Chillax, relax, I got this. Don't bug me at all the entire night. They have never come up to us and bugged us ever since we started doing this. Because they're out there waiting for the bad signal that never actually happens because we know how to control the crowd. So consider using LED strobe / floods as a bad signal. And also if you work on cars, because halogen lights are very bright and they hurt and they burn and they make you cry and then your wife has to bring you hot cocoa. Last but not least, I want to talk about one of my favorite school cells. They spent $2,000 more because they saw our promo video, but they saw one particular light. Go back on this video. UFO in the middle? Yeah. That's not something you see every day. Well, back in like, old school lights, that was a huge popular effect. And it's back. And I love this light. Like I said, it's like, I love my wife, Johnny, Jason, UFO, then the car. But what happens is, so they were watching the video and she's like, okay, I really like that light. The students are like, we want that light, that'll be perfect. It has nothing to do with our theme, but we want it. How can we get it? I told them, well, here's the thing. That's my light. Nobody touches that light. Nobody can even look at that light. So I would have to be your DJ. Okay, why don't you be your DJ? Well, the problem is he didn't spend enough. Unfortunately, I only go to a certain price point on schools. How much more is it going to be? About $2,000 minimum, at least. I didn't think they were going to go for it. She's like, okay. Seriously. I'm like, okay, I should feel happy that I made a $2,000 show because of a light, but at the same time, they didn't care about me. They just wanted the light and the fact that I came along with it. But I mean, seriously, it's an eye-catching light. Every one of our promo videos, that light is the center point of it because it's different. Everybody has seen lasers. Everybody's seen uplights. Uplights are now standard. There's photographers offering uplights. Then again, there's DJs offering photo booths, but that's a different story, right? Oh, how those double standards happen. Everybody's seen everything, but this is like something you don't see every day. It's an old school effect. And we have the teachers like, I remember that light, back in the disco and the 60s. I'm like, no, you don't. But it's a light that not a lot of people see, so they see the light, they get excited by it, and it catches their attention. So when you do your promo videos and stuff, consider doing stuff that people haven't always seen, especially when you're lighting design. Look what everybody in your area is offering and do something different. Break the pattern of interruption or it'll break you. Last but not least, bad cord management destroys a light show. I am not even going to talk about how to do cord management because I suck at it. That's what my wife is for. So moral of the story is, bring your wives along and help them help you because I can't clean up. In all seriousness though, with power laking, with the tons of free straps you can get in Vegas, and especially when I bought the UFO, it came with like straps and everything, it's a lot easier. Work real hard to make your light presentation look better. Not only is cord management going to make your setup look easier, but it's easier to diagnose. Has anybody here do school events with, let's say, more than 10, 15 lights? Ever have one of those lights go down and you spend the next 8 hours yelling at everybody, including the hotel staff, because you can't figure it out? It's ridiculous. It's like working on a car and you can't see what's underneath because it's all dirty and oil and covered up. So the same thing with your lights. Make sure you have good cord management. It's the next thing next to godliness. Last but not least, the contact info. There's my email. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. If you go on the website, you can also get my phone number and everything else on there. Please make sure to check out Master School Dances, American DJ. Thank you so much for bringing me out. I really appreciate it, guys. My name is Arnoldo. Offermann. God bless.